NFL life to civilian life was 14 months and money was gone.
10 years later, you found Supra Human.
80% of people's giving me 10 grand over the phone. Now we have PhDs on staff, master's degrees.
People looking at me after 3-4 months in and going, what the F did you do?
We have 45-year-olds who have lost over 180 pounds. If you just live life not on purpose, you're gonna resemble that body image that is genetically passed on to you. It's an investment on time, not money.
Talk too much shit, that's why they don't like me.
Most people online, they'd rather be smart than rich. I'd rather be rich than smart.
I can put him in the L.
Each financial decision is not in a silo by itself. It has to be looked at and how it relates to something else in your plan. And most people are not looking at the big picture.
If you don't want to be in the best shape of your life, you should stop listening to this right now. And more importantly, if you don't want to own and scale a multi-million-dollar business, you should definitely stop right now. But if you're on the other end of that and you're interested, I have one of the greatest guests with me today on Money Isn't. It's John Madsen. Welcome.
Careful, Johnny. You're going to get a lot of haters now.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Are you ready for it?
I think I am, actually.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I think I am. If you don't know John, I just want to spend like a few minutes on your story, because your story to me is one of those stories. It's the hero's journey. It's the struggle. And it's then finding this next level of it. High school. You don't play football. You're a basketball guy, you're a tennis guy, but you don't play football. You go to a junior college, you walk on to play football. The next year, you figure out how to play for Urban Meyer, and then you go to the NFL. Like, it's a dream come true that most people wouldn't even consider, and you play in the NFL for 3 years on the Raiders and the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're out. And you're creating gyms and you're creating performance gyms for kids, but you're missing something.
Mm-hmm.
10 years later, you found Supra Human. Supra Human might be the best capability of creation that I've ever seen in my 35-year career.
Mm.
Dan Sullivan, I don't know if you know him, the strategic coach.
Definitely.
Ben Hardy, they talk about when an individual takes a complex problem, organizes it in a special formula, and makes it easy, that's a unique capability. And that's what you look for. And like, what you've done for so many people is absolutely incredible. And I want to welcome you.
Thank you, John. That's good. You did homework. We're
I
brothers,
think,
kind of.
I mean, how many podcasts of yours did I listen to?
How many?
200 and I think I got down to about 10.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, I stopped at 304, so you did good.
I went all the way through 304. I started at 293 and went backwards.
Amazing.
And
that's the way to do it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a long journey from Florida.
Wow.
Which was life-changing.
Thank you.
Truly life-changing. I want to have you on today because this, if you don't make 150,000, right? If you don't want to be in the best shape of your life, which is what most people, like, they're wrestling with these ideas in their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And they want it, but there's a permission that they're missing. And that's one of the things that was absolutely incredible when I first got targeted marketed in a airport in Montana.
Mm.
And I started listening to your stuff and it resonated with me. I jumped in, went through the sales funnel, got to the sales funnel, got to the point where I had to make a decision. I'm like, if it's this good to this point, what's it going to be like on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to go through today.
Amazing.
So the podcast is Money Isn't. And money isn't means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To you, what isn't money?
What isn't money? It's everything except money. I like the name, by the way.
Brady's choice.
Because I'm always thinking about what money is. To me, money is freedom.
Permission. It's
right?
everything. Right?
Yeah. So what money isn't, I think is also freedom in the same context. It's imagine if my life wasn't revolving around this constant thinking process of how to create more money or wealth.
Right.
I was telling my wife this the other day. I was like, my whole brain works on not that I love money for money's sake, but I love freedom for freedom's sake. And so growing up, the way that I grew up, middle class, that sounds funny now because one of the presidential candidates, that's how she starts every deal,
she
right? I grew up in middle class.
Yeah.
So I was just about to say that. I'm like, I grew up middle class. Money was not plentiful. I had all of my basic needs met and I didn't know any different.
Correct.
Right. But I also remember going to, my dad liked cars. He had a 1996 Corvette. And that was a big deal. And so we'd go to these car shows, and I'd be like, "Man, Dad, like, can we get the new one?"
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, "No, money doesn't grow on trees," and say stuff
like
like that. I'm
why?
like,
Why?
And I'm like, "Well, why? These other people have these. The Vet was cool, but I'm like, I want the best one, right?" And so I realized that although we had everything, we didn't have anything that we wanted. And for whatever reason, like I wanted to live a life that didn't need me to look at price tags. If I wanted a certain thing, it wasn't me, deciding in my brain, like, which one's the best, which one is the best that I can afford. I want the best of the best, regardless of price.
Right now.
I mean, my whole life though.
Yeah.
And so I was driven by that. And still, so my brain works like in this revenue generating way. I'm always thinking about how can I make more money? And again, that might sound, weird to some people. But again, it's not about the money, it's about the freedom. So money isn't the concept, would also be very freeing if I wasn't always constantly thinking about money.
Right.
Yeah. So very interesting.
It's, there was something that I think you and I had a conversation about a year ago at the Supra Human first event that I went to, which would be like July of last year in Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about the how did you frame it? You framed it from the perspective of I was doing something in my business that kept me in a lane and that kept repeating the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And all of a sudden you had this shift that took you to like another level that said, "Oh, I don't have to keep playing these suppressive patterns and have, you have a huge sign-on bonus. You make money in the NFL 5 years after you're out. You're like a statistic like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You're out of money.
Yeah.
And you're having trouble meeting your payroll. You can't make the mortgage payment. And it's like, why is this happening? Like, what was that shift in your thinking?
Yeah. I mean, so I broke my leg, my 3 games to go my senior year. So I had all the agents, probably 50 to 100. My phone was ringing off the hook. Every time someone called me, I was just like, "Here's my dad's phone number. I got to concentrate on the season."
Correct.
Right? So my dad's like
Fielding the
calls and being like, putting them in categories like top agencies in the world of sports. And they're like, "You have a chance, depending on combine performance, to go in the first round. You're one of the top wide
huge.
Receivers."
From not playing high school football,
right. And so I'm thinking, I'm looking at MTV Cribs. I'm like picking out cars. I'm like, where am I going to live? I'm like, I'm going to have millions of dollars in my pocket
LA.
in 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. And
3 endorsement deals.
3 games to go. I break my leg and I can't run for 10 months. And so that meant that there was no signing. There was a $5,000 signing bonus and a plane ticket one way to Oakland for a tryout. Mm-hmm. And if they liked me, then I could stay longer. And if they didn't, I would get another plane ride one way back to Salt Lake City. And so I'm like, what should I pack? Is this permanent?
Am I packing a big bag or am I packing a short bag?
and the very first tryout, like it was the first time I actually ran full speed since breaking my leg. So there's a whole mental side of like,
is it going to break again?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know if I can run. I had been training in straight lines, but I haven't planted. And so I remember like running as luck would have it, right? I get lined up on the left side of the ball, and I have a post route. So that means I have to slam my left foot into the ground and take
Which
the
is the
angle.
left foot that you broke.
Right. And so I'm like, could you give me like a corner route, which I could slam my right leg down? And so I remember running, slamming that leg down and just feeling excruciating pain, like shoot through my body and continuing on. And so the tryout, I'm like, I don't know, like my whole...
Now you're holding back.
My whole mentality was just like, don't let them see that you're hurt or they're going to send you right back home.
Yeah, you're on the next
So
play.
I'm like wrapping my ankle up, like, well, I'm not wrapping it, but I'm having the training staff wrap it up, and then I'm wrapping it over the shoe. So we call that a spat, and it's just like I'm wearing a cast out there, right? And so,
which is now they're looking at that going, oh,
Yeah.
what's wrong with him?
yeah, and so I was a little bit slower because I wasn't completely healed. And Al Davis walks down. He's like, look, we think you can play, but if you're going to play, you're going to do it at tight end, not wide receiver.
Which is
So
a
then
complete shift.
Then I had to change positions. And so ultimately I was the only guy that year that made the opening day roster as an undrafted free agent. Out of like 30 guys they bring in that are undrafted, getting signing bonuses from zero in just a tryout to maybe 5,000 if they like you, everything in between. I was the only guy that on opening day was an actual roster and got a game check for, playing in the game. And
Wow.
so played there for 3 years. Ultimately, I got washed up in that NFL deal. It's a cutthroat business. And from there, I opened up a performance gym because I realized that the mentality that I gained from all that was really what I wanted to give back to kids. So I started training high school kids. That was 2010. And I had that gym all the way through until 2020, really. So 10 years in the gym. And to your point, most of those years was not financially successful. When I got done with the NFL, I remember having, like, if I swiped my bank card or took money out of the ATM, there was like $330,000. And I spent $100,000 of that on the gym that I created.
On the equipment.
Then I bought a house with another 90 something grand down payment. Now I have like 110 grand, and I'm like, that's not very much money the way that I'm spending it.
Right, you're going to be chipping away at it quickly.
And so I opened the gym July of 2010, and right before Halloween, so over a year, however many, 14 months, 15 months, I remember getting out of the lease by going in there on Friday night and having help and ripping up all the turf we put down, taking all the equipment out, putting it in my garage, selling it for pennies because it was like, I thought I had to file bankruptcy, but I didn't owe anybody any money. I just didn't have any more to pay the lease.
Right.
And
so you're running away from the lease.
Yeah. So I'm like, if they're going to put locks on the doors and I have, $100,000 of equipment, I'm going to sell it for $25,000 so I at least can put
Get some
food
money
on the
back.
table.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to take it and sell it.
So that was how fast, like, NFL life to civilian life was 14 months and money was gone.
You said to me when you entered the NFL, your mindset was you wanted to get to the NFL.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I want to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And that was a big distinction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, as big as I thought, like, getting to the NFL is a very big thing.
Like, who gets there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, out of all the football players that are playing Pop Warner right now, how many kids actually get
less
there?
than 1%, right?
Just like the success.
And so for me, like, getting there was like, it was so big. I remember the stage just being so big that I just couldn't play my best football because it was like the lights were too bright, right? It was like, man, do I deserve to be here? Like, I'm just this kid, that didn't even play high school football. Now I'm here, and it was enough. And my hunger for the goal, like, I was satisfied much too easy. I remember, like, going into my third year was a big contract year for me.
Because you're here.
Yeah. And not that I regret anything, but it was like, I was partying. I was having more fun in the off season. I was having more fun spending the money than I was actually playing football. And so I just realized, with, contrast to some of my other buddies, one of my great friends, Eric Weddle, played football with me at the University of Utah, is going to go down as a Hall of Famer. And, he's 5'10", 185 pounds. And the dude loved football. And his approach to football was way more of a pro than me. And I look at him and I'm like, he believed that he was going to be a Hall of Famer, where I just, like, I stopped believing at that NFL level.
You stopped setting goals.
Yeah.
You were here.
Yeah.
How long can I ride this out?
Exactly.
And then you were inserted back into middle class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
you went from the ultimate, the dream of so many people, back into the middle class
Yeah. I
lifestyle.
mean, I look at, those early, I didn't even know how to read, financial statements back then. I was just, the success or not success of my business was based on how much money was in or out of my bank account.
And the timing of it. And the timing of it.
I'm like, the amount of hours I worked for 8 of those years for the amount of money that was actually profit. I'm like, I probably could have worked at McDonald's, to be honest, for a lot of those years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, there was some revenue, but there was like more expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many, like, this is why I want to have this conversation. Like, I wanted you to get to this point because there's a shift that you have. You're sitting somewhere and you're like, there's got to be something different than what I'm doing. And and these new visions are coming out. Like I described when I entered Supra Human, my vision of my future, which I thought was actually abundant, was actually gray. And I was in a gray zone of my life. And I think I described myself to you as like a glazed donut. Like when I showed up, like I was good, I was tasty, but I was like, I had forgotten what I really wanted. And the program, the process unleashed so much inside of me, which we'll talk about later. But like, you're here, you're in this performance gym. You like, where is it that you decide that you're going to go online and become the fastest growing online fitness company, or maybe the largest at this point? I don't even know. Like you're huge at this point. Like when is that? Where are you?
So at the tail end of that, I remember vividly like a moment where my wife at the time was when we met, she was a news anchor in Salt Lake City. And so, she had
saw her on TV.
Yeah. She had always been successful. And so from there, she ended up being essentially like a exec in a very large tech company, and she helped build that company. And so she had always been pretty highly paid, which allowed me to mess up a lot of times.
Right. You had that safety net. You had that safety net.
And there was money coming in. Without that, I mean, who knows where I'd be, right? So I remember though one time where she was like, hey, the mortgage payment's coming out. Can you transfer some money from the business account for our mortgage payment? And our house, the first house that we bought when we were married was like $350,000. The mortgage payment was not that much.
Yeah.
I like maybe $1,800. I don't know. But it was like, can you transfer $2,000 out of the account? And I had that sinking feeling when I opened up my laptop that there wasn't even $2,000 in there. Right. And so I just remember being sick to my stomach and thinking to myself, like, I have way too much potential to not be making it.
Yeah.
Right. And I had invested in myself in different courses and marketing, and was one of the first guys in Alex Hormozy's course, Gym Launch, and then was one of the first guys in Tanner Chittister's online fitness course. So I had been dabbling in all this stuff, and I'm like, I actually know what to do. I just can't do it.
Yeah. And why?
Right.
Like, why?
And that's what I was trying to figure out. So I'm like, man,
so many people are stuck in business in the same zone. And this is why I want people to understand this. Like, you're stuck in repeating patterns.
Yeah, I knew what I needed to do. I just couldn't do it. And so I don't know where I heard this from, but I started studying like NLP. I was like, this is interesting to me. And so I started looking for some coaches. And this is about, 12 months before I got introduced to William, who's in the other room. Like I was like thinking that I needed an NLP coach for whatever reason. I read it in a book. Some successful guy said something about it, something where I'm like, I want to find a coach. Anyways, I got introduced to William by somebody, and we went to dinner with him and his wife, me and my wife. And at the end of that dinner, I was like, this is my guy. Like, I think he can actually
help me
figure out, because at that time I decided that my whole problem is somewhere in my mind. It has nothing to do with talent or capability. I have plenty of that.
Some kind of connection of keeping you stuck.
Right. And so we got to the end, and back then, like, his one-on-one coaching was $25,000 a person. There was me and my wife. We had told each other that we had $50,000 in a rainy day fund that
Safety.
we were not
do not part with that
do
money.
not touch. Like, I spent Gym Launch without telling her, Chittister without telling her, Russ Ruffino's Clients on Demand without telling her, putting on credit cards. I mean, I eventually told her.
Sure.
Right.
Afterwards. Oh yeah. I did the same thing.
and so like
beg for forgiveness.
But at this time, I'm like, if I do that one more time, like I might get my neck just slit.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, I'm going to bring her to this meeting to see if she signs off on it. And
Right.
little did I know that William might be one of the greatest salespeople in the entire world, very subtly. I had no idea what his techniques were back then. It was just like, he was William. And at the end, he was like, it's 25 grand a person for one-on-one coaching. And if you want to do both together, it's 40 grand. And I'm like looking at my wife, I'm like, well, what's the other packages? There was a 7 grand or like a 12 grand. And I'm like, well, at the very least, I think she's sold on that. And when we left the restaurant, we're getting in my truck and she just looks at me. She's like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it all. I'm like, are you
let's
serious?
just go.
And I'm like, yes, because I'm a gambler. I'm like, I'll
Chips in.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. And so a couple
What's
days-
amazing to that
yeah.
is that so many spouses, and this is why you guys are such an amazing team and co-founding this whole business, like you jump into this together to grow together.
Yeah.
And she wants to support you and you want to support her in this growth, and you go through this coaching
Yeah.
and everything starts to,
Yeah. And so I wrote the check, and then, very, very subtly, William's coaching us, just in person and one-on-one. And I'm going through these exercises and I'm realizing that there's so many like blocks on what I believe is possible.
yeah.
Like, I don't
like
understand.
what? Yeah.
Yeah. A simple one is like, I thought $1 million was a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
Right. And I also thought that the way that I was doing business, I was very rigid in my approach. Like, nobody can do this better than me. Like, nobody can train these athletes like me. Nobody can, like, all these like all or nothing, always, never statements that were very general, that would lock me into a way of doing things that would not allow me to grow. Like, if I look back, like, I was very hard-headed and very stubborn in doing the wrong things. And so I just got opened up to a new possibility. And some of the exercises that we would do, I was very shut off to, having a desire for material things, or it's like I wanted them inside, but it was very hard for me to acknowledge that I actually wanted a certain type of life and it was okay to have it. So through that whole process, I think that's where the term, like, I realized that I had to give myself permission to go for everything that I wanted, and that I wasn't going to make the mistake that I made in the NFL, which was to, when I got there, to let it be enough, that I was going to be satisfied. And so through that next couple of years, like, there wasn't a moment where I was like, I'm going to build the best online fitness program that's ever been built. My initial goal was just to make $1 million. And so I remember making $987,000 in a calendar year. And it's like, I didn't hit my goal of $1 million, but like, that's a shit ton more money than I was making.
Pretty damn
right?
near close.
And
to it.
so like, that was a realization that, that wasn't that much. And then there was levels to that, because we jumped from that to like 3.5 million and to 4.8 million. And now we're going to do well over 20 million and on a hockey stick again.
Yeah.
So it's like somewhere in there, each level, I realized that my thinking was not big enough. And the expansion of that over these years has just been a magical ride.
I mean, just since I joined, like you were adding 40, 50 people a
Yeah.
month in March of 2023.
Yeah.
You're adding 40, 50 people a week,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
Right?
hmm
Like that is,
And increased prices. So
yeah,
here's
which
like
is the key to success.
I remember going into one of the quarterlies, and there was an 18-month period of the business where it was like chewing glass. I don't know if everybody who's been in business has been through
True.
years of this or, months of it, but it was like we were just stuck. It was like there was the same revenue every single month, Groundhog Day, same problem, like what's going on in the marketplace? Like, is it too crowded? All this stuff. So even though I had evolved my thinking up to this point, now we're stuck at this, right under $5 million mark, and things are looking like, how are we going to break out of this? And a lot of things happen, but I remember going into planning, and in one of the quarterly sessions, the idea was to make it more affordable, which made it worse. And so
it increased the friction.
it made us, like, the business went down. Like it went worse than we were doing. And so we were like, because I'm talking to my sales guy's like, John, I'm talking to these guys, and like, there's just so many people that can't afford it and blah, blah, and so we're thinking about ways that we can increase revenue. So I'm like, what if we, we had at the time we were selling like a $5,000 package. And I'm like, well, what if we have a $5,000 and like a $2,000? And that way, like, it's affordable to everybody. We could do this. And so the whole planning was around this one concept. And that next quarter was the worst quarter we ever had because it made it worse. And so
you opened it up too far.
Yeah. And so then the next quarter, we're still stuck. And I'm like, what if we change our prices to 10 grand and 30 grand? And they're like, you're crazy. Like, how is that going to help? Right. And then I changed the messaging, and a lot of other stuff changed in the background for the scalability to even happen. But we just started popping off. And so it was a completely contradictory thing to what most people would do, how I solved the issue that had been hurting us for 18 months.
Now, did you, in that moment when you were thinking about it, did you do any work on designing the ideal client?
Yeah.
The culture you have is one of the best cultures I've ever been part of.
Oh, 100%. Like I know specifically who our avatar is. And a lot of people say that. They're like, oh yeah, like men who make money. It's like, I know the desires of, and the psychology of the men that get into our program. And I just had to refine that messaging to speak to the heart of that person and not worry about making it affordable to everybody else.
And that deletion of all those other people got rid of all the glass.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like
And it made a lot of people hate me, but it made the ones that resonated with love it so much that, it just popped off.
No. When I jumped in, I did the $5,000 course.
Yeah.
The 16
That's
weeks.
all we sold for years.
And I was like, I've wasted $5,000 on marketing ideas and, like all the gym, all the stuff you talked about, like, this thing, that thing. I'm like, I'm going to learn something in this and I might get myself fit.
Mm-hmm.
And holy shit, did I get myself fit?
Yeah.
And it was like, now you had this next level. And I'm like, the year or the elite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm elite.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you resonated with me so much, but I needed a little bit of kick because I look back at my history. I did Body for Life. I did P90X. I went to an Anthony Robbins thing where I walked on fire in 1992.
I'm a firewalker too, by the way.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then like you stay the extra day and he had like this vegan diet thing. And I went from like 195 pounds down to like 172 pounds.
I remember sitting in the chair and I'm like, I'm a meat eater. Right? Yeah. And I'm like, Tony Robbins might be the only guy in the world that could get me to consider going vegan.
He's bigger than you. He's bigger than you.
Not even that, just the power. I mean, the way he uses language and scared the shit out of us with the videos of the chickens and the,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I might go vegan. Only for a second though.
I did it for like 6 months.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I lost a ton of weight. And everybody's like, oh my God, but I was so skinny. And we go out to this fabulous burger place and I'm like gonna have a salad. And my wife's like, just have a freaking burger. And I have a burger.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, like I got to have like 90 burgers now. And I went back up to 200 pounds.
Oh
like
my
literally
God.
Within 3 months, I was back up to 200 pounds.
That's crazy.
And then I got P90X, or now I got Body for Life, and I was back down to like 180, get to the end of the program.
Yeah.
And I'm back. You just go right back.
Right.
So you're here, you get this decision to make this thing elite. But I want to go backwards because we were talking about the capability. You took something very complex because most people never get fit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the majority of people are unhealthy.
Yeah.
Their retirements suck because they don't have their health. They have money, but they don't have health.
Mm-hmm.
You organize this in a way that if you follow what the coaches tell you, you follow the program, you can't not get success.
Right.
You have to have success. But there's a point where, and business owners do this, I'm the best salesman. I have to do all my selling. Mm-hmm. I'm the best marketer because I know my program better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the fulfillment dude.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that you can't scale this business by sitting in all those seats.
Mm-hmm.
And you find you actually hire a fitness coach to get you in shape.
Mm-hmm.
And you decide to have him as a part of your team.
Yeah.
But when do you, how much, and the reason why I'm groping on this is most people, like in financial planning, they have what's called a practice. And in my mind, you're constantly practicing, right? Or an attorney has a practice. Your fitness business was a practice. You're helping kids, you're helping people online, but you make a decision to go, I have to sit in one seat and I got to surround myself with the best team members.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? And how did you do it?
Well, out of need from the coaching department side, when I started, it was me and little, actually like an assistant type of role. And then there was one other coach that I was like, hey, I need some help here, And so there was like an assistant coach, an assistant myself, and that was essentially it. And so, after years of going through marketing and like trying to figure out how to generate leads, one of the things that plagues the fitness industry is broke leads, right? And so they're just not speaking to the right people. And I remember just, again, like getting to the point, it was actually after my 36th birthday, because I remember doing a podcast in my truck, and there was an episode in there where I just like was very truthful in my discouragement of like where I was at in life. Because I still had the gym and I was going online, and I just had to take a $20,000 loan from PayPal to pay to keep the lights on in the gym. And this is when I'm 36.
Yeah.
And
10 years after.
Yeah. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And like, this is absolutely insane.
This has got to end.
And so I went to the gym that day and I had a camera and I just put it up, and I was completely off scripted. And at that time, everybody was telling fitness coaches that they needed to run people to a 45-minute webinar, to a booked call sequence, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah,
and I would just
that whole sales funnel.
I was just like, dude, webinars are not it. Like, my guy is not going to watch 45 minutes of bullshit for me to pitch him a call. It's just not going to work. That was what I was thinking. And so I'm like, if I have this avatar, and I had some friends that fit this avatar very well, I'm like, they're going to give me 10 minutes. So I took the camera out and I just ripped what I call a video sales letter for 10 minutes, unscripted.
Which was extremely popular.
Dropped about 50 F-bombs. Like, it was like, and I just went in on it, right? And overnight we ran it, and I started getting like leads that were CEOs and CFOs and all the great leads. It just spoke to the people. I was like, whoa, dude. And so I was doing the sales call. So I would run this stuff. My calendar started popping off. I'm taking these calls, and I'm like, at first, I'm like, $4,000 still feels like a lot for fitness. I'm like cringing when I'm about to drop the price of $4,000, and everybody's taking it. But where are these people going? They're going on my roster.
Right. So now your calendar's stacking to a point
yeah.
where you can't see everybody.
Yeah. I'm just like, dude, like now I'm too busy. I'm marketing, I'm selling, I'm doing the stuff. And so I'm like, well, what if I just make I get this other coach? I'm like, I'll give them a choice. They can work with my coach for $3,000 or me for $6,000. And that was my pitch. And
everybody took
98% of people took the $6,000. I'm like, that's crazy. And so now I'm like way busier. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go 4 and 10. 80% of people is giving me $10,000 over the phone.
Oh my God.
And because the marketing was so good.
Yeah.
I spoke to the right person.
Were you running that same
I
ran
it for like 2 years straight. Like didn't even think to do it again. Now the version that people see is like refined and like very on purpose with linguistical excellence. But,
it's fabulous.
Yeah. But that happened. Meanwhile, I had a fitness coach who was coaching me, and I kept dropping seeds. I'm like, bro, like, maybe you should jump over here. And so that's our head of human performance, or chief of performance now. He got on board. Yeah.
Ben.
And overnight, because he was such a leader, I'm like, you just handle the fulfillment. You build the team. I got to focus over here on marketing and sales. And so Ben just built that from the ground up. And we have one of the top, and now we have PhDs on staff, master's degrees, like the level of coaching we have now, because again, when there's no capital, nobody gets paid very much. Now the business does very well. We can recruit far and wide for the best coaches in the industry who want to work remotely, can live wherever they want. They have full-blown benefits, like every single person in the company. Like, we're taking care of everything and paying them better than anybody can.
So why wouldn't you want to just line up?
And the culture is like just on fire, right?
Yeah.
So
The culture is incredible.
Yeah. So like we have like, I don't know, 25, 30 full-time coaches now, but the fulfillment, I realized long that I didn't want to do the fulfillment, and I needed the fulfillment to be excellent. Why? Because my name was on the line.
Yeah.
So, I'm taking 10 grand, but if it sucks, like they're not really mad at these coaches. They're like, John's a scam or whatever.
Yeah,
so
just like
it was
every
like
other
it was
mediocre
important.
business.
It was important that was built out. Now, the real genius though, like I'm not an operational CEO, like not a scalable, like for me, like if I had to build a company, it would be like built with like, it would be very bloated because like the way that I would solve problems is like just hire people.
Correct.
Right. And a lot of companies do that. And they have like dozens and dozens of more people than they need to run a lean and efficient company. So that's essentially, where it was going. But then my wife, Nineveh, who you know very well, like she had been groomed in a 7-year period in a company that started at like 3 mil and was doing, way, way beyond that. So she saw how the team and structure was built, like real life education. In real life
Technology and people combined in a way that's unbelievable.
And so
she applies it to you, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, she built, like with, and I say this and, a lot of people don't know, but it's like, if she wasn't there, the scalability would not be there. Like I can market and sell my face off, but it would be broken. Like the fulfillment would be broken. The onboarding would be broken. The systems, like we were building systems in, like I look back at our tech stack and it was just like, it was all we knew, but it would be like, we had information. It was like, it was just, it was one little small disaster away from a big disaster. Right. It was like building a house on just complete sand. And so I don't want to take the credit of being the person that's the orchestrator of the scalability of this company because I'm not.
That's why you're a co-founder.
Oh yeah.
And it's her.
And usually
Nineveh is amazing.
But I look at my friends' businesses and that's what they're missing.
Yeah.
It's like if you have 2 people and you just happen to be married and you have an opposite brain, one is more marketing and sales and all of that stuff that can make it rain, and the other one can like build.
It's incredible.
That's dynamic. You look at Hormozis, it's the same.
It's rocket fuel.
Yeah. And when people don't have it in partnership, they have to get it in partnership.
Correct.
Right. It's like now you're giving 50% of your business away to somebody else because, because
you lack that skill.
Because you lack that skill. And guess what? I'm a firm believer that you can't make yourself into that. Yeah. Like I really believe, and this is where maybe it's not the most growth mindset thing to say, but like my brain, if I had to do that, maybe I could, but I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
It would take me
your unique ability.
It would take me completely out of my element to do what I need to do for what I do for the company. So I truly believe that when I look at other people's businesses, it's like a lot of people's like, oh yeah, I have a person that's like operational. It's like no. Like usually they don't. They don't. But if you do,
it's magic.
Magic. Yeah.
So I jump in March of 23.
Mm-hmm.
I go from 200 pounds to 180 pounds by June, July. I go to your event. You have 300-400 people fly in, and it's active people. It's people that were there, people that are considering it. And I say to you, John, I'm going to be your number 1 referral source.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah. And I have referred over 23. I'm on the leaderboard for like 16.
That was before we,
before
we could keep track. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Wall Street executives, business owners, people that are like super successful who are looking at me after 3-4 months in and going, what the F did you do?
Mm-hmm.
I need this. And one of my best friends, Sean, he's like 5'10", 270.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's still 5'10", but he's 190 pounds.
Crazy.
Right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like I saved their lives. My position was, I need to make you as healthy as I need to make myself as healthy as I possibly can, because I have this vision of longevity and I'm doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And your program, like, okay, we just talked about business, but your program is like, I have a husband and wife team that just jumped in recently. they're both down 25 pounds.
Yeah.
And they're like, John, you saved my life.
Yeah.
And there's some like the health in our population. Then you have Dr. D with biohacks coming in and doing this whole incredible, analysis. And then it's the incorporation of the coach and it's you and it's bringing everything together. Like the health side of this thing is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
What's playing into that future? You're solving people's problems. Like they don't even really understand.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out?
I'm very for me, it's always been training and nutrition has always been up until this point, really an aesthetic thing. Like it's vanity at its finest.
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
yeah.
I like,
you have a six pack.
Yeah. It's like in the same token as like, I want a lot of money. And some people would say that's greed. I don't believe that, but some people would say that.
Yeah.
When it comes to fitness or had come to fitness, like I want to look a certain way. Vanity, greed, vanity, same token, different vertical, right? And still I'm driven by that because I think if a person doesn't really give a shit about the way that they look, if they really don't, some people I've had to learn this, like they actually don't.
They don't.
Like it blows my mind that they don't, or like I don't know where that, like how, I don't know how.
Might be one of the most frustrating things for me, sitting next to somebody, they're seeing me get this incredible transformation in every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And they're having the shittiest lunch that they could possibly have. I'm like, do you not see this?
Yeah. Yeah. And we can go down that road, but I think that like a lot of people though, they do have this desire that like they've shut off, that they're like, or they don't believe in its possibility. And it's like, man, like if I could look like a Spartan, I probably would. Yeah, that would be cool. Do they believe it? Probably not yet, but that's my job.
Yeah,
right?
Part of your job is to unlock the Spartan.
I awaken this desire in people to be like, holy shit. And now we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of not just me. Yeah, people look at me, they're like, yeah, you played in the NFL, but it's like we have 60-year-olds, we have 67-year-olds, we have 45-year-olds who have lost over 180 pounds. It's like there's examples everywhere.
It's incredible.
Right? And so when people come in, they're like, oh, like maybe like I'm going to give myself permission to like actually go after and not just lose 20 pounds, but to go all the way. So that's where it started. But then I also realized that, and I'm a father. We had our daughter when I was a little bit older, like I was 35 for, when Jasmine was born. And I'm like thinking about, what if she gets married at, 30 or 25 or whenever, right? And how old am I going to look? And I want to be around for a long time.
Yeah, you want to freeze your age.
And so there's like, so there's this longevity, and we're at the cutting edge in this world of health where all the technology that's available now, like all the stuff, that we could talk about, there's a moment right now, like I really believe that people are not just going to live until they're, the average age is whatever it is, 78 or whatever, right? It's like, I really believe that we're going to see people live 120 plus years.
Yeah.
And like my generation, even your generation, it's like, if you do everything you can now, and it's not just about like withering away at 120 years old, it's how long could you thrive? That's really what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And so then the partnership with Biohacks and Dr. D, like, I was really interested in. Again, I'm like, will it enhance the way that I look? Awesome. Will it possibly slow down the rate of aging? Debatable, right? But they actually have tests now that when I first started, the tests would tell you your biological age, which is, or your chronological age, which is how old you actually are. Right. And at the time I was 38. And your biological age, which took a look at all the stuff that the algorithm was going to look at, and it would give you a biological age. And when I started, even though I had been in the fitness industry, I was 38 years old, but my biological age was 40. So I was aging at a rate of greater than 1. So every year that passed by, I was above that. So it was like, whoa, that
I was 54 when I first did it.
Yeah.
I was 58.
Yeah, that shook me a little bit.
I was like,
as weird as that was. Yeah. I was
what
like,
the hell's that?
Yeah. I'm like,
I look damn good. No, you don't.
Right.
You look like shit.
Right. And so like been on the protocol really for 3 years nonstop, doing like, Supra protocol, Biohacks protocol. And my score just came back. We were talking before we went live, and my rate of aging now, they they do it a little bit different. They don't give you the two numbers.
Right.
It's more like a speedometer.
Yeah.
And so like one would be like every year that passes, you're aging like a year.
Like
right. A year passes, you're a year older.
The true calendar year.
Right.
Right.
And mine came back and was 0.69.
You're
so
at
it's like
0.69?
0.69.
I was 0.9 last time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is good.
I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even know like how good that was. And he's like, bro, this is top 1% in the world. Like, this is crazy. Like, we got to do studies on the Supra Humans who are doing both the protocol, because he's like, that's actually the magic.
That's the magic.
That's the magic. And so we're about to, and he has, I'm not going to say specifically, but huge, top universities that want to do studies on this stuff, that we are like now a big part of what we do is not just vanity anymore. It's actually longevity.
It's more longevity.
It's like vanity and longevity, which is, I think, is a holy grail. Like, I want to be as healthy as possible and live as long as possible, because there's testosterone clinics and TRT clinics on every corner. They don't give a shit about that. They just like, are you going to get jacked?
Yeah. They
right?
just,
it's like, dude,
that's
that's not what we are. So it's like longevity and aesthetics meet. And that's what I'm very excited about.
I see it as, we know there's technology coming, there's medical advances coming that will basically freeze your age at a certain level, and it'll keep you there for a long time. And I believe it's all here.
Yeah.
Right. But if you don't have the elements of nutrition, sleep, water, all the proper things, you can't go out and go, oh, let me take this pill, because you got a shit body. You're going to stay in a shit world. Like, you want to be in the best shape of your life. When you get to 100, like I have multiple clients in their 90s. I have a 100-year-old client. I have somebody that I know that's over 100. And one of them is just living fantastically.
Yeah.
Right. Most of them, the last 10 years of their life is terrible because they've lost all their muscle.
Yeah.
They've lost their nutrition. I was talking earlier, we do wealth management, and part of that is like retirement planning. There's a whole gap in why retirement is not a good reason, right? But my grandfather years ago, he's like, this is not the golden years. He's like, my ass, this is the rusty years. If I had known I was going to live so damn long, I would have taken better care of myself. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. But I wasn't doing it to the extent that I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, no. And the amount of people that's like, oh, I eat healthy. And then you watch them order lunch. You're like, no, dude, I don't know like what world you're living in, but that's not it. But
the fried fish and chips and the French fries.
Yeah. People say that all the time, but until you actually do it, and to your point, it's the fundamentals like that, those are never going away. And there's, people want just this magic pill or this magic peptide or this magic whatever treatment. And that's not it. It's like it all, like the foundation has to be built. And then there's stuff that you can stack on that foundation. And to the point of this podcast, money isn't the difficult part. Is like what we're talking about is very expensive.
Yeah. It's not cheap.
It's not going to be cheap for a long time. And so unfortunately, like, the protocols that I've been on for 3 years is very, very expensive to get that rate of aging to the point that it is.
It's an investment in
and
yourself.
So it's like, you are wealth management. You have people that are, in getting to their 60s, 70s, and 80s that have a bunch of money, but they don't have their health. Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
And the money has no value.
Doesn't make sense.
The money has no value.
Exactly. And so what we're actually talking about might seem expensive, but I also think it's like the biggest investment, the best investment that a person can make, because it's an investment on time, not money.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to me that, how money and this world collide.
And it's like, if you assume for a second that the investment in the protocols has an opportunity cost on it.
Yeah.
Like, which I believe it doesn't, right? So that means I'm going to have less money in my retirement because I took money out and I invested in my body.
No. Yeah.
But you're not going to have that, right? No, but that's the way people are perceiving this. Right. It's like, I don't want to part with the 10,000 again to sign up.
People who don't do it, that's what they're thinking.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the one mind shift, because smart people do not think that way.
At all.
No. More energy, more vitality, more drive. Right. How are you going to make less money?
How are you going to make?
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't. It's incredible because, like, I found myself, like, I thought I was extremely abundant. And I'm a guy that, like, I write checks for college. Like, I'm just like a happy guy. Like, I'm writing checks. I'm getting shit that I want in life. But then I realized, like, I'm actually pulling in the reins and writing shorter checks and not fully investing. I'm like, oh, that's expensive. That's why I did the 5,000, not the 10.
Yeah.
Right? Out of the gate, because I didn't trust myself. But all of a sudden, what people need is they need that. They're looking for confidence before they jump into something, but you can't get the confidence unless you like take a little bit of a risk and get the clarity of what you really want. Like if you visualize your retirement, what does that retirement look like? Like, what are you doing? You work 50 hours a week, you're a business owner, and now you're sold your business, you got the pile of money, but you're sitting at home. You're not playing golf and skiing and traveling. And literally people are telling me in my 60s, I'm not gonna be able to move as quickly as I am now. In their 50s, I'm like, where's that programming coming from?
Yeah,
like
what they saw.
Yeah, it's what they saw. Like they saw their family do that. Like you see the Life Alert ads, right? And it's like
you know what's interesting to me though. Like I look at high school friends, Facebook and social media, right? And it's like I remember like playing baseball and having my friends' dads were like prominent figures in the little league scene, and I remember how they looked.
Yeah, dad bods.
Yeah. but now like that we're grown, it's like, and we're the same age as like our dads were.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these kids and their bodies are exactly the same as their damn parents. Like, you know what I mean? Clone, dude. And you're like, whoa, that's trippy that genetics are that powerful. However,
it's not genetics.
It's not, I mean, it is left unchecked, right? If you just live life not on purpose, you're gonna resemble very closely that body image that is genetically passed on to you.
Yeah.
My family, right? Like nobody looks the way that, like we're tall genetically, but nobody has built their body with 20 years of like dedication and consistency.
Of fitness.
Like I have.
Right.
So it's like cousins and all this stuff. Like they have a tall, long, lengthy, like
skinny guys.
Yeah, skinny, fat,
sprinter
body. Not even sprinter like. No, like it's like, not athletic.
Not
right?
Like the exact opposite.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, genetics, because if I let myself go, like that's where you go. But
And that model that you give as like if you want to get people to do something, you can't change everybody, right? But if you want to get people to do something, you've got to do it yourself. Like you can't, you should do that. You should do this. Like my biggest gain in the referral side of this thing, right? Because I believe a great business attracts people, and like you just want to share it, right? Because like it changed. Not only did it change the way I look, it changed the way I feel. It changed the way I feel about myself, and you want to share that with as many people as you possibly can. And I realize that the only reason that is happening is because of your vision of excellence and how you define, elite, and how you define mediocrity, right? And like everything that I see is filled with mediocrity, and you've like eliminated the mediocrity from your teams, from your business, from your thinking, from like you just parting waves and like building this thing, and like people are mad at you online, which I think is the greatest thing. And it's like, I like, and I actually want to attract some of that, right?
Yeah.
But it's like
you will.
I love it.
Yeah.
I used to think I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. And and that held me back. And what I realized is not only did you help me find my vision of what my world is, and like I'm going to post some of my transformation photos into this video.
Amazing. There
is a photo of me in September of last year, September 15th. And I think I look freaking amazing. I'm down I'm literally from 200 and something down to like 172, 173. And visually I look amazing. I'm like 3 pounds heavier a year later. It's not even the same individual. It is insane. But like my energy, my focus on my children, my focus on my clients, my focus on my friends, my ability to be present just morphed to a whole different level. Yeah. And I believe that if I didn't make this investment, we wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
Right. But my life would be completely different.
Yeah. And one other thing on referrals that, speaks volumes to your character is nobody refers people. Referrals are a reflection of influence.
Right.
Like influential people refer people. If you have no influence, nobody's following you into anything.
Yeah.
So I think that being a leader on the referral board for my company with all there's some 2,000 people members. You're number one out of 2,000. And there's business. I mean, there's a lot of people with influence there. So it's just a testament to your influence. I think having influence is one of the most interesting things in the world. Like I want to have massive influence because I think that that's just a powerful thing to have.
And you had that influence to change people to the better.
Yeah. To do something that's not fun, by the way. Like if it's fun for me, it's fun for you now, but like measuring your food and going to the gym and being sore, like to a person that's not doing that, that's the last thing on earth that they want to do.
People see me doing that.
Yeah. They're like, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that? Like, aren't you done with that?
And so to influence people into this new way of life is incredible. So great job.
Yeah. Now, a couple things. Your coaches have a podcast, the Supra Human show. That's an amazing journey, and just one, they're funny. Yeah. But the amount of content that they put out there, like you let these guys run this show in a way that I think is so like you see, and this is why I want it, like as a business owner, you're basically saying, you guys are my subject matter experts. I want you guys up on a pedestal, which most business owners don't do. Especially in fitness. Like fitness is littered with fitness coaches who want to be the smartest people in the world. Yeah. It's like they want to argue about the dumbest shit. Like, you know, fitness isn't rocket science, number one. It's simple. It's not easy. But most people online, they'd rather be smart than rich. I'd rather be rich than smart. And so I hired I like that. You know, these coaches. I'm like, you're the how. You're the how. Yeah. Like you want to, like they love content about how to get fit. Blah, and that minutia is incredible. I don't like that. To me, I'm like, they're smarter than me in that. They have PhDs. Like let run. Someone wants to debate me on fitness and nutrition. I'll be like, debate my coach who has a PhD. Like you can debate him. All good. I'd rather be the why, because without the why, there's no how. Yeah. So I'm the why mouthpiece. All my my content, you're not going to see me in a grocery store being like, look at the ingredients. It's like, nobody gives a shit about that when they're watching my page. It's like me is the why. That's why I'm digging into my marketing to the purpose of it. Now we're building Supra Human. All the how-to content comes from real experts, and now we have both. So I think you need both. I just don't think that I want it. Like I definitely don't want to have a business where I have to be both. Yeah, and that's why your business is scaling. Yeah, because you have freed your team. If I say that right. You have given your team permission to be their best selves within your space. Yeah, and they want to be seen too. You know, they want like everybody wants to be seen as, you know, maybe not an expert, but they want to be seen in whatever light they want to be seen in. So giving them a pedestal and shining that light on other people, I think, is very, very underrated in business. Right? You don't build something great by you know, putting everyone in the shadows. Ed Milet said something that literally he said one time on stage, and it struck me. He said, and now I get it, because this is how we're building our company with the moves that we're making, is he said, build your dream so big that everybody else's dream fits inside yours. And that dream, like their dreams are fitting inside my huge dream, because most people just they're not willing to think that they don't have the vision, or they don't think it's possible like I do. Now I completely understand. I'm orchestrating this company to where it's like I'm gonna gather people and I'm gonna make their dreams come true. And the more that we can do that for every individual in the company has nowhere to go but expansion. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. If people want to get started, they go to the John Smallwood page? No, they go johnsmallwood.com. No, but how do they get started? Like, how do they jump in? So they definitely go to suprahuman.com. Supra. Like the car. SUPRA human.com. The new website's going to be launched in a couple weeks, but suprahuman.com would be their best bet. If they wanted to get started, they just follow the links that take them down the pathway to first fill out an application to see if they're a fit. And then when they get on with my sales team, just make sure that they say your name so that you continue to just crush referrals and leave everybody in the dust. Yeah. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Johnny. I love this. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And by the way, looking good. Vein in the bicep, baby. The vein in the bicep. That's a signal. There we go. Boom. Yep. This is awesome. Thank you, bro. Oh my
That's
God.
a cut.
Yeah.
Holy shit.